Hello friends. Welcome back to my channel where we make history videos. Today we're going to do the entire history of Carthage. The year is 814 BCE and the Phoenicians have been sailing around the Mediterranean doing their thing, which mostly consists of trading, colonizing, and generally wreaking havoc for a few centuries at this point. They established colonies all over the place, including one in present-day Spain, another in Sicily and Malta, and many more. But by far their greatest city was Carthage. Carthage was founded by the Phoenicians around 814 BCE on the North African coast, not too far from the Strait of Gibraltar. Its exact location is now part of Tunisia. From its strategic location on the Mediterranean coast, Carthage grew quickly into a major trading center. The city was protected by natural harbors, making it an ideal location for merchants and traders to dock their ships. This strategic location allowed Carthage to dominate trade in the Western Mediterranean, which led to immense wealth and power. At its peak, the city's economy was based on trade and commerce, specializing in the import of grain, silver, and ivory, and the export of manufactured goods, textiles, and slaves. Also, there were some mercenaries mixed in there too. Carthage was known for its wealth and power, which made it a target for invaders. The city was attacked many times throughout its history, but its strategic location and strong defenses allowed it to withstand most attacks. However, as we'll see shortly, it wouldn't always be able to stop everyone. Phoenician society was highly stratified with a small ruling class of nobles who controlled most of the wealth and power, and a large class of merchants, artisans, and traders who made up the majority of the population. Religion played an important role in daily life, with the Phoenicians following a polytheistic religion that emphasized the worship of several gods and goddesses, including Melkart, a supreme deity associated with the sky and the sea, and Astarte, a fertility goddess who was also popular in other Mediterranean cultures. Their alphabet would heavily influence the Greeks to make their own. Curious about their alphabet? It's a fascinating system that combines unique symbols and sounds, making it truly special. As we move into the next section, the Phoenician identity starts to fade away as Carthage begins to grow on its own and eventually becomes its own empire. So let's talk about that empire building. As mentioned before, the Phoenicians were never a unified people. It was more of a term used to describe a collection of city-states that all had similar cultural traits, and as the centuries passed, these city-states started to grow and change on their own, adopting and adapting to the cultures they interacted with. This is when Carthage really started to become its own thing, taking on aspects of the cultures surrounding it, like the locals and the Greeks. In fact, the Greek influence was so great that historians argue whether or not to call this new phase Carthaginian or Punic, with Punic being an old term used to describe Carthage's last phase before its destruction. But we're going to call it Carthaginian. During the Carthaginian period, Carthage became increasingly independent from Phoenicia, developing its own unique culture and identity. Despite being separated from Phoenicia, Carthage maintained ties with other Phoenician city-states, forming a loose confederation known as the Phoenician League. This league provided Carthage with valuable alliances and support during times of war and conflict. And what conflicts we'll get to soon enough. Under the Carthaginians, Carthage continued to prosper, expanding its territory and influence throughout the Mediterranean. It dominated trade routes and amassed a considerable navy, which played a crucial role in its expansion and power. Also, slavery was common in Carthaginian society, and slaves were used extensively in agriculture, mining, and domestic service. Some slaves were imported from other regions, while others were captured during military campaigns. Also, women in Carthaginian society enjoyed more rights and freedoms than in many other contemporary civilizations. They could own property, conduct business, and even participate in religious rituals. That being said, though, it was still a patriarchal society with men holding most of the political power. Now let's talk about those conflicts, specifically the conflicts with the growing power of Rome. The First Punic War was fought between Carthage and Rome from 264 to 241 BCE over control of the western Mediterranean. The war began with a conflict over the island of Sicily, which both powers had interests in. The conflict quickly escalated into a full-blown war, which was primarily fought at sea. The Carthaginians had a powerful navy, but the Romans were able to match it by copying Carthaginian ships. Despite their naval success, the Romans were unable to defeat the Carthaginians decisively, and the war ended in a stalemate with the Treaty of Ludi. The war resulted in significant loss of life and resources for both sides, but it also marked the beginning of Rome's rise as a major power in the Mediterranean. The Second Punic War was fought from 218 to 201 BCE between Carthage and Rome. The war was sparked by Hannibal's invasion of Italy, which shocked the Romans. Hannibal's military genius and the size of his army threatened Roman dominance in the Mediterranean. But despite Hannibal's victories, the tide of the war turned against Carthage. Rome's superior resources and manpower eventually prevailed, leading to Carthage's defeat and the loss of its territories in Spain and Sicily. The Third Punic War was fought from 149 to 146 BCE between Carthage and Rome, resulting in the complete destruction of Carthage. Tensions between the two powers continued to rise after the Second Punic War, and Rome's desire to dominate the Western Mediterranean led to the conflict. Carthage's remaining territories were seized by Rome, and the city itself was sacked and destroyed. This marked the end of Carthage's independence and its removal as a rival power to Rome. There are a lot of lessons we can take from the fall of Carthage, but I think the main one is to watch out for those sneaky Romans. They're always looking to expand their empire, and they won't stop until they get it. Carthage was once a mighty power in the Mediterranean, but its failure to adapt and innovate ultimately led to its downfall. So how did Carthage compare to Rome? Well, Carthage was known for its maritime power and commercial activity, whereas Rome was renowned for its military strength and political organization. Carthage's society was more diverse and tolerant of other cultures, while Rome had a more homogeneous population and was less open to cultural exchange. Both civilizations had a significant impact on the Mediterranean world, but ultimately Rome's greater adaptability and territorial ambition led to its supremacy. What if Carthage hadn't been destroyed by Rome? It's impossible to say for sure, but it's fun to speculate. Perhaps Carthage might have become a dominant power in the Mediterranean alongside Rome, or it may have continued to thrive as a center of trade and cultural exchange. Maybe it could have defeated Rome, although I doubt it. Or maybe it would have been destroyed by someone else. Who knows? But one thing is for sure, it would have been very interesting to see how it would have played out. What do you think? How would history have been different if Carthage hadn't been destroyed by Rome? Let me know in the comments below. And that is the end of our rapid-fire history of Carthage. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want and leave a comment if you feel so inclined. But most importantly, stay tuned for more content.